My ex-wife told everyone I was abusive, so I released the videos of her attacking me. The security cameras I installed after our first break-in saved my reputation and probably my life. What started as a simple home protection measure turned into the most crucial evidence I'd ever collect. Every room in our house had a camera except the bedroom and bathrooms, and I'm grateful for that decision every single day. When she started spreading lies about me being violent, I had hours of footage proving the exact opposite was true. Our marriage began falling apart after 3 years when she lost her job and refused to look for another one. The stress of being the sole provider while she spent her days shopping and meeting friends for expensive lunches created tension that grew worse each month. I worked overtime constantly just to keep up with her spending habits, coming home exhausted to find her angry about something new every evening. The arguments became more frequent and more intense, with her throwing things and screaming while I tried to stay calm and reasonable. The first time she hit me, I was so shocked that I just stood there frozen. She slapped me across the face during an argument about money, then immediately started crying and apologizing. I thought it was a one-time thing caused by stress, so I forgave her and we moved on. But the pattern repeated itself within weeks, and each incident became more violent than the last. She would throw plates, books, and even small appliances at me when she got angry, always following up with tearful apologies and promises to change. I started walking on eggshells around her, carefully choosing my words and avoiding topics that might trigger her anger. The house felt like a minefield where any wrong step could explode into violence and chaos. My friends and family noticed I was becoming more withdrawn and quiet, but I was too embarrassed to tell them what was really happening. Men aren't supposed to be victims of domestic violence, at least that's what I thought at the time. The cameras captured everything over the next 6 months. Her throwing a coffee mug at my head while I was making breakfast, leaving a dent in the wall behind me. The time she shoved me down the stairs because I forgot to pick up her dry cleaning, causing me to sprain my ankle. The evening she attacked me with a kitchen knife after I suggested we needed to talk about our relationship, chasing me around the dining room table while screaming threats. I never fought back physically, always trying to de-escalate or simply protect myself from her attacks. The footage showed me covering my head, backing away, or trying to grab her wrists to stop her from hitting me. I called the police twice, but both times she managed to convince them that I was the aggressor and she was defending herself. Her ability to switch from violent rage to tearful victim within seconds was truly frightening to witness. The breaking point came when she threw a heavy glass vase at my head, missing by inches and shattering against the wall. I realized that she could seriously injure or even kill me during one of these episodes, and I needed to get out before that happened. I packed a bag while she was out shopping and left our house, staying with my brother while I figured out my next steps. The relief I felt walking out that door was overwhelming after months of living in fear. I filed for divorce the next week, citing irreconcilable differences and requesting a restraining order based on the documented abuse. My lawyer advised me to keep the video evidence confidential, unless it became necessary for the legal proceedings. I hoped we could handle everything quietly and move on with our lives, but she had very different plans for our separation. Within days of receiving the divorce papers, she began her campaign to destroy my reputation throughout our community. She told everyone we knew that I was an abusive husband who had been beating her for years. Her stories were detailed and convincing, describing injuries and incidents that never happened. She claimed I had given her black eyes, broken her ribs, and threatened to kill her multiple times. The lies spread like wildfire through our social circle, my workplace, and even my family. Friends stopped returning my calls, coworkers avoided me in the hallways, and my own relatives started questioning whether they really knew me at all. She posted long, emotional messages on social media about surviving domestic abuse, receiving hundreds of supportive comments from people who believed her completely. My employer called me into a meeting to discuss the allegations, explaining that several clients had expressed concerns about working with someone accused of domestic violence. They didn't fire me outright, but they removed me from client-facing roles and made it clear that my career advancement was frozen indefinitely. The whispers and stares from colleagues made every day at work uncomfortable and humiliating. I lost most of my friends during this period, as they chose to believe her version of events over mine. Even when I tried to explain that her accusations were false, people looked at me with suspicion and disgust. The social isolation was crushing, making me question whether I should just accept this new reality and try to rebuild my life somewhere else. My family was divided, with some members supporting me while others wondered if there might be some truth to her claims. Sunday dinners became tense affairs where conversations stopped when I entered the room. My mother asked me directly if I had ever hit my wife, and the hurt in her eyes when she had to ask that question nearly broke my heart. The legal proceedings were moving slowly, and her attorney was skilled at delaying tactics and procedural maneuvers. Meanwhile, her public relations campaign against me continued to gain momentum, with local news outlets picking up her story about surviving domestic abuse. She gave interviews describing her ordeal in graphic detail, always careful to avoid saying my name directly, but providing enough information that everyone knew who she was talking about. I watched my life crumble around me while feeling powerless to stop it. The truth seemed irrelevant when faced with her compelling performance as a victim. She had transformed herself from an abusive spouse into a brave survivor, while I became the monster in her carefully crafted narrative. The injustice of it all was eating me alive, but I still hoped that the legal system would eventually reveal the truth. The first major twist came when she made a critical mistake during a particularly emotional social media post. She described an incident where I supposedly threw her down the stairs, giving specific details about the date, time, and injuries she sustained. The problem was that I had video footage of that exact evening, showing her attacking me and me defending myself without ever laying a hand on her. My lawyer was ecstatic when I showed him the footage, explaining that this was exactly the kind of evidence we needed to prove her dishonesty. We had her caught in a specific, detailed lie that could be definitively disproven with video evidence. But he also warned me that releasing the footage publicly could backfire if it seemed like I was trying to humiliate her rather than simply defend myself. I struggled with the decision for weeks, knowing that releasing the videos would completely destroy her reputation just as she had destroyed mine. Part of me wanted to take the high road and handle everything through the legal system, but another part of me was tired of being painted as a monster while she played the victim. The constant stress and isolation were taking a serious toll on my mental health and overall well-being. The second twist occurred when I discovered that she had been secretly recording our conversations during the final months of our marriage. She had been planning this character assassination campaign long before I ever filed for divorce, collecting what she thought would be evidence of my abusive behavior. Instead, the recordings captured her threatening me, admitting to hitting me, and even discussing her plans to destroy me if I ever left her. Finding those recordings was like discovering a smoking gun that revealed her true intentions. She hadn't been acting out of hurt or desperation after our separation. She had been carefully planning this campaign of lies from the beginning. The recordings showed a calculating, manipulative person who was willing to destroy an innocent man's life to avoid taking responsibility for her own actions. Armed with both the video footage and the audio recordings, I finally had enough evidence to completely expose her lies. But I also realized that releasing this information would essentially end any chance of resolving our divorce quietly and amicably. Once these recordings became public, there would be no going back to a peaceful separation. I made the decision to release everything after she gave another interview to a local news station, this time claiming that I had hospitalized her with a severe beating. The interview was scheduled to air during prime time, reaching thousands of viewers who would hear her latest fabricated story. I couldn't stand by and let her continue spreading lies that could follow me for the rest of my life. I created a comprehensive package of evidence including the security footage, audio recordings, and documentation of her lies. I sent it to the same news station that had interviewed her, along with copies to several other media outlets and social media platforms. The footage showed her violent behavior clearly and undeniably, while the audio recordings revealed her calculated plan to frame me as an abuser. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The news station pulled her interview and instead ran a story about false domestic violence allegations, using my evidence to illustrate how easily public opinion can be manipulated. The video footage went viral on social media, with millions of people watching her attack me while I tried to protect myself without fighting back. Public opinion shifted dramatically overnight. People who had shunned me for months were suddenly apologizing and expressing outrage at how I had been treated. The same social media platforms that had been filled with support for her were now flooded with angry comments about false accusations and their impact on real victims of domestic violence. My employer called me back for another meeting, this time to apologize for their handling of the situation and offer me a promotion to make up for the damage to my career. Clients who had refused to work with me were suddenly eager to schedule meetings and discuss new projects. The professional reputation that had taken years to build was restored within days of the truth coming out. The legal proceedings accelerated quickly once the evidence became public. Her attorney withdrew from the case, and she was forced to find new representation willing to work with someone caught in such obvious lies. The restraining order I had requested was granted immediately, and the divorce settlement became much more favorable to me as her credibility completely collapsed. She faced serious consequences for her false allegations, including potential criminal charges for filing false police reports and perjury. Several domestic violence organizations that had initially supported her issued statements distancing themselves from her case. The interview she had given to the news station was used as evidence of her willingness to lie publicly about serious crimes. The most satisfying moment came when she was forced to issue a public apology, admitting that her allegations were false and that she had been the abusive partner in our marriage. The apology was part of a legal settlement that also included financial compensation for the damage to my reputation and career. Watching her read that statement on camera, finally telling the truth after months of lies, felt like justice being served. My social circle gradually returned to normal, though some relationships never fully recovered from the initial accusations. I learned who my real friends were during this ordeal, and I've maintained closer relationships with those who stood by me during the darkest period. The experience taught me the importance of having people in your life who know your character well enough to resist believing lies about you. The broader impact of my story surprised me, as it sparked conversations about male victims of domestic violence and the dangers of false accusations. I received messages from other men who had experienced similar situations, some of whom had been too ashamed or scared to seek help. My willingness to share my evidence publicly gave them courage to speak up about their own experiences. I also heard from women who were genuine victims of domestic violence, expressing concern that false accusations like my ex-wife's could make it harder for real victims to be believed. This perspective helped me understand that my situation wasn't just about clearing my own name. It was about protecting the integrity of the systems designed to help people who are actually being abused. The criminal charges against her were eventually dropped as part of a plea agreement, but she was required to complete community service and attend counseling. She also had to pay restitution for my legal fees and lost income during the months when my career was damaged. The financial consequences were significant, but the damage to her reputation was probably more devastating than any monetary penalty. I moved to a different city after the divorce was finalized, wanting a fresh start away from all the drama and publicity. The new location allowed me to rebuild my life without constantly being reminded of the ordeal I had endured. I found a better job with a company that valued my skills and experience, and I was able to advance my career beyond where it had been before the accusations. Dating again was challenging at first, as I found myself wary of getting involved with anyone who might have hidden violent tendencies. The experience had taught me to pay attention to red flags that I had previously ignored or dismissed. I also learned the importance of maintaining my own support network and not isolating myself in future relationships. The security cameras that had saved my reputation were eventually removed from my new home, as I no longer felt the need to document every interaction. But I kept the original footage and recordings as a reminder of how quickly life can change and how important it is to have evidence when someone tries to destroy your character with lies. Looking back on the entire experience, I realized that releasing the evidence was the right decision despite the pain it caused. Living with false accusations would have been worse than dealing with the temporary controversy of exposing the truth. My ex-wife's lies had the potential to follow me for the rest of my life, affecting my career, relationships, and even my relationship with my own family. The aftermath also taught me about the power of social media and public opinion in shaping people's perceptions of the truth. The same platforms that had been used to spread lies about me became tools for sharing the actual evidence of what had happened. The speed with which public opinion shifted reminded me how quickly false narratives can be created and destroyed. I still think about what might have happened if I hadn't installed those security cameras, or if I had chosen to handle everything privately through the legal system. The false accusations might have followed me indefinitely, limiting my opportunities and relationships for years to come. The decision to go public with the evidence was difficult, but it was ultimately the only way to fully clear my name and restore my reputation. The experience changed my perspective on domestic violence and the importance of supporting all victims, regardless of their gender. I now volunteer with organizations that help male victims of domestic abuse, sharing my story to help others understand that violence in relationships can affect anyone. The work has been personally rewarding and has helped me find meaning in what was initially just a traumatic experience. My relationship with my family has fully recovered, and we've actually become closer through the process of dealing with this crisis together. My mother has apologized multiple times for questioning whether I might have been abusive, and she now understands how convincing false accusations can be when presented skillfully. The experience taught all of us about the importance of presuming innocence until evidence proves otherwise. The legal system eventually worked as it should have, but not without significant personal cost and public scrutiny. I learned that justice isn't always swift or automatic, and sometimes you have to fight publicly for your reputation and your future. The months of living under false accusations were among the darkest of my life, but they also revealed my own strength and resilience. I've been able to move forward and build a new life, but I'll never forget the lessons learned during that difficult period. The importance of documenting the truth, the value of real friendships, and the danger of false accusations have all shaped how I approach relationships and conflicts. The experience was traumatic, but it also made me a stronger and more aware person. The story serves as a reminder that domestic violence is a serious issue that affects people of all genders, and that false accusations can be just as devastating as actual abuse. Both problems deserve attention and resources from society, and both require us to seek truth and evidence rather than simply accepting the most emotionally compelling narrative. In the end, the truth prevailed, but only because I had the evidence to prove it and the courage to share it publicly. Without those security cameras and audio recordings, I might still be living under the shadow of false accusations. The experience taught me that sometimes you have to fight for your reputation and your future, even when it's uncomfortable or controversial to do so.